Yeah, I just think that when it comes to guys that have like severe injuries, that and I have nothing against him, but I just can't see myself doing it because either A, I'm gonna be mad with what happens, or B, the whole league's gonna be pissed off at me because I robbed somebody that, is never gonna play again. Then again, if anybody did make a trade for Cam Akers after that thing happened and like you got like a third for him, or like that's what you sent, like good on you for like just robbing the Akers owner that wasn't patient.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to take a look at that. I mean, you gotta see what the risk versus reward with somebody like Akers, because the risk is there because it is a severe injury, but the upside of that could be tremendous because he's very young.
Yeah, it's just like we never saw anybody come back from an Achilles injury like this to actually have an impact. That's such a hard injury to have and try and come back from. And I think like Devonta Foreman, he just started playing now. But then again, they're way different guys like coming out. Akers was more sought after. But anyways, that is our slow slide intro into this podcast. What's going on, guys? Welcome on back into Second and Short, Season 3, Episode 2 of our podcast series here, where we're going to dive into the Cheap Seats fantasy version podcast. We're going to continue our Dynasty, buy, stud, keep, and trade away type of series we got going on, where we break down each team in each division over 8 podcasts. If you missed last week and you want to see who we talked about, it's the NFC West. Go back and check out the 4 teams, the 12 players we talked about there that we think could help you dynasty-wise. And this week, we're going to talk about the AFC West. And I am Tyler Lauder, joined as always with Jason, a.k.a. our dynasty expert over on the coast.
Hey, what's going on, man? Glad to be back. I mean, Season 3, Episode 2. I mean, we're off to a hot start. I think these little 12-player discussions are going to be very interesting because I see that us not being on the same page on a lot of these players.
No, and we did. And we actually sat down and we went over who's going to lead off with whatever we're going to talk about in each category. And when we were doing that, we kind of found ourselves back and forth of what we're talking about. So I think that's going to make it nice because we're not just going to agree with each other and move forward, but it's going to give a little bit of flavor to it. With all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump on in. And we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. Let's go alphabetical order. And Denver Broncos. So I'm going to lead us off with a buy candidate. Now, this is the hardest team so far of these 8 teams we've talked about to like identify these. Keep is easiest, and you'll see why. And if you're listening right now or you're watching and you can kind of see our faces, keep is the easiest thing in Denver out of any of these teams. For me right now, I think you need to go out and buy Cortland Sutton. I just totally believe that Cortland Sutton is a guy that he had a 1,000-yard season before he tore his ACL. He comes back in and he has a okay year. I think would be fine to call it. He finished 45th, and I don't really blame him as much as I'm blaming like Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, back and forth. Like the offense in Denver just never seemed to click unless they were running the ball. But I just think that his value is slowly going down. But we have to remember, this guy is he's 25 years old, and he's 26. He's 26. And I think his counterpart, Jerry Judy, is not a guy that's like going to dominate and take over that role. And I think Sutton is sitting at least either as the 1 or the 1A at worst.
Yeah, and the quarterback play there dictates his performance. And I also contribute it to the fact that, he is coming back from a major injury. So, 1 year removed from a major injury like that, and he still put up a decent, solid numbers.
Like 776 yards. He had like almost 60 catches.
I think that's a good sign because coming back from major injury, it's not only the physical aspect, it's also the mental aspect, knowing your body's ready. And I think that played into a lot of it too, as well as the quarterback play. So I really like that as a buy candidate.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not really worried about who's going to be the quarterback next year as much, because what I mean by that is like I don't think it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater. I think they're going to move on from that ship. It might be Drew Lock, but I think Drew Lock still has this upside to him that could benefit Sutton. But Denver is such a hot spot commodity for Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I mean, there's just Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins. And I know I said Baker, and some people probably argue with me on that, but I think that all those guys going there improves the quarterback play. And if Kirk Cousins goes to Denver, Cortland Sutton will be a top 20 wide receiver in 2022. Simple as that. Let's move on to the easiest segment here. Let's talk about your keep for the Denver Broncos.
Teddy Bridgewater. I'll just aside. It's got to be Williams. I mean, he came in. Everybody thought it was going to be a two-headed monster in that backfield, which it did until he got acclimated into the offense, and then he kind of took over. Gordon became the complement back. And I think this kid's got a very bright future. And he is somebody that if you have him, he is a good staple to build your team around, especially Dynasty format.
Yeah.
And he's going to be there and he's going to be producing numbers. He's got great hands out of the backfield. He's got a good north-south run game between the tackles. And he's got the elusive speed once he gets out on the quarter, gets to that second level to break one for massive yardage. So this is definitely my keep. Like you said, this is the easiest one. Probably the easiest pick out of the entire division.
Yeah. And he had about just under 250 total touches, including his rushing and his receptions, which was 43 receptions. He went over 1,200 all-purpose yards, 7 total touchdowns on the year. And here's the best part about this is that he was able to have success and finish as running back 17 in PPR formats with Melvin Gordon being there the whole time. So this is going to provide to me that next year, if Gordon's still in this split with him in Denver, that I'm so confident he's going to finish as a top, he's going to be an RB2. And if Gordon's gone, then I think Williams has the easiest track to an RB1 of any player that did not finish as an RB1 this year. And with all that being said, I mean, he had over 50 targets. That alone right there is what I want in a dynasty running back. And you're going to keep this guy anyways, because you probably drafted him at, I don't know, what was ADP last year? Like 1.4? About like that range in like single quarterbacks, like 1.3, 1.4 probably is where
drafted. In rookie formats, I seen him anywhere as high as 1.3, as low as 1.6.
Yeah, and people might want to try and cash in because we talk about you cash in after a big season, and he did have a really good season, and he returned exactly what you wanted from him from a high draft pick in the rookie drafts last year. But ultimately, you're going to keep a guy like this, and you're going to turn him in 2 years before he hits that 4th year in the league and before he signs that second contract. That's when you'll turn him. He's marinating right now. He got covered in seasonings. It smells great. Don't take it out of the pot yet. Let it sit and let it cook. And it'll return more flavor, aka value, in 2 years. Now let's move on to something that you do need to get rid of. And here's the thing. I don't know if this is just personal, but this guy finished as a wide receiver 90 this year. He missed 7 games this year. And that is wide receiver Jerry Judy. He had 4 games over double digits in his time that he did play. He had like 38 catches, for 467 yards, no touchdowns. His average yards per catch was only 12.3, which is, that wouldn't even be a wide receiver 4 in that range. And I get it. He's still young, but what did we say after his rookie year? He drops the ball too much. And now, year 2, health is now an issue. And I don't know if he's really improved on catching the ball because he dropped, I don't know, he didn't drop, I don't know what drops, but he, 56 targets, 38 catches. So like it improved, but his average yards per catch went down. His first down numbers obviously went down, and just his games played went down. And for me, get rid of him while his name is still hot, just because I'm not a fan. That's just me.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, the wide receivers in that draft class coming out of Alabama all have struggled. I'm thinking maybe that was he? Did he come out with Ruggs? I'm wanting to say
yes.
It was.
Yep.
So him and Ruggs came out highly talented, and they didn't really produce. Of course, Ruggs has his legal issues, but still, even when he was on the field, you've seen flaws in their game. So I really like this pick you made, because I think that he's a great college player. He was a great college player, but I just don't think that he has the skill level to transition. And people want to say that it's, the quarterback play, this, that, the other. Yeah, I mean, there's been crappy quarterbacks, but also look at DeAndre Hopkins. Look at some of the quarterbacks he played with and still put up 1,000 yards. So talent will shine through.
Yeah, and I just look towards the roster, and I know he doesn't have the draft capital, but I think Tim Patrick performs at the same level that Jerry Judy performs at, except for he's looked at in the red zone. He's able to get more targets because he's healthier. I mean, and he's a guy that's back-to-back years that he's had over 79 targets back-to-back years as the number 2 to 3 option. And I think that he's going to benefit more. And I think Judy's going to just fit into this wide receiver 3 role for Denver. I know it's counterintuitive. I'm arguing my own point because I say Sutton's going to look great with a new quarterback and Judy won't. But I just think Sutton has the feel of a wide receiver 1, where Judy is just a role player that got drafted too high because he went to a prestige college. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's a fantastic route runner. I would like to see his hands improve, and I'd like to see his health be better. But ultimately, get rid of him while he's got a hot name, because you can do more with that draft capital you can get back for him than you can him sitting on your bench as your wide receiver 5 or 6. Now let's go ahead and switch to the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're going to lead us off here. We're going to keep talking about wide receivers. And this is a very interesting pick you have here on who you want to buy. You want to right the wrongs of the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City. And
I like Pringle. I mean, he's came on as of late. I think he's earning the trust to become the wide receiver 2 there when they're doubling Hill down and they're playing for him and Kelsey. Pringle's actually stepped up, made some big plays, not only big yardage plays, but big plays in the sense of a reliable receiver downfield. He's got uncanny speed. He's got breakaway speed that can get him that separation. He's got a pretty solid frame on him, and he's got better than average hands. So I think his emergence over the second half of this season is somebody that I'm targeting to maybe be a flyer at your wide receiver 3 flex in desperation, or, an injury happens, because we all know that you can't always depend. He's somebody that you can slide into your lineup as a wide receiver 2, because one, that offense is a high-powered offense. Mahomes likes to spread the ball around. He's got his favorite targets, but he's also a scrambling quarterback that likes to be mobile and play what I call street football at times and get wide receivers open, see wide receivers in a soft pocket of the defense and get the ball to them with some velocity. So I think this is a good buy, and you can get him fairly cheap. I mean, he is going to be dirt cheap for you to pick up.
He'll cost you next to nothing. Like, if you don't know what to do with those those 4th round rookie picks you got, Pringle's the type of guy you can get. Now, there's a reason why you can get him, because, and we have to be honest about this, is that the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City does not produce as well. We've seen Mecole Hardman fail to produce there. We've seen Sammy Watkins fail to produce there, mainly because they're the 3rd or 4th option, because like the running back gets used, and obviously Kels and Hill. But Pringle did have 5 touchdowns this year. To hype up what you're saying, out of 16 games he did play, 8 of those games he saw 4 or more targets. So it's not just like he's getting 1 target a game and getting a bomb and he's useful. He's actually more useful than Mecole Hardman was this year. They're very, very similar, but the biggest difference is that Mecole Hardman got 2 touchdowns this year. He saw a lot more targets, but Pringle was able to produce more fantasy points this year than Hardman with less targets and just more usage in the proper zone of the field. Do not buy him though, thinking that he can potentially be a wide receiver 2, 3 for you. This is a guy that can be a nice roster stash for you and will probably benefit you more than your 4th round rookie pick will, at least in this year's draft class. Now, let's move on to a buy. This is very interesting because there's a lot of guys we can buy here. This is a good team. There's a lot Oh, sorry, you just did buy.
I just did buy.
Sorry, I'm stuck. There's so many guys I want to buy, but a guy you should keep. Now, I believe just Travis Kelce. Simple as that. He finishes the tight end too. Tight ends are hard to come by. And I'm gonna argue my own point here later on, but in midway through the next year, he's gonna be 33. He's gonna be hitting a point where you're like, he's old. I gotta get rid of him. The problem we have with this is, I think if you were gonna sell Kelce, it had to be this offseason for you to get maximum value. And I don't think that you're gonna be able to turn around and trade him for a younger tight end that's going to produce like he will and also make you happy with your decision. If we go back in one of our leagues that we do together, I actually made a trade for Travis Kelce, and I wish I could find a quick transactions where I could just easily find. But here's the thing. He's going to continue to produce as a top 5 tight end next year. And probably the year after that, until he retires, he'll probably be a top 5 tight end. Do not get rid of that, because that is what helps you win championships. Even if it comes with up and down roller coasters, consistency is key, yes, but value is the absolute key. That is the master key, having the best value at the best positions. And that's simple as that.
Okay. Going back to your point, you got Travis Kelce, you gave up Michael Carter, Tony, and a 2022 seconds,
which ends up being 210.
Yeah, with you winning the league, that shoots at the very late. So yeah, you got him for a song. You stole him pretty much. Which granted, Carter's going to show signs of brilliance, but you definitely won that trade because Tony, as a Giants fan, flashes of brilliance, but injury, size, Jones is iffy quarterback, borderline. So I think you got him. You're right on the money with, he's a player that his value was at a peak. If you've held on to him this long, continue to hold him because he's still going to produce, and you're not going to get the return that you might get something for him, but you're not going to get what his actual value is. You're not going to get his market value for him because 1, age, 2, people's going to be thrown off. They're going to try to lowball you for him. So yeah, he's in that position in his career and in that offense. It's a hold. It's a plug and play. Not worry about it. Set and forget.
And this isn't like an old guy that you're just going to hold on to because he's your favorite player and you're just going to put him on your roster, because people do that. This is a guy that actually is going to help you ride into the sunset. Now, this keep is a limited window of keep. It's for the top 50% of your league. If you're in 10 team, it's for a top 5 team. You're in 12, top 6, and so on and so on. If you are not in that top 50% of your league right now, you're not a playoff team, then obviously this keep isn't for you. Obviously he's a sell. That makes sense. Old guy rebuild, sell. But do not get fooled by thinking I could trade him for, unless you get Kyle Pitts, there's nobody else you should really be sending Kelce away for. That's my opinion, because it's going to be such a big drop off. Even if you get a younger player, that it's not going to return the investment. And if you do get something that looks too good to be true, then you have to take it, obviously. But otherwise, ride this into the sunset, enjoy this as long as it can, and you're okay. He's going to help you win championships. He just helped me win a championship in our league. Now let's move on to a guy that you think that people should trade. Now I know you like to get, spicy takes, and last week you were very cold on your takes. So let's turn up the heat a little bit.
Yeah, this one's I'm trading away Mahomes.
The QB4 from this past year.
Reason being is if you look at the stats, which I'm pretty sure you got ahead of you,
Mhm.
A lot of quarterbacks you could have got later on in the draft that produced as QB1s. And you could get a better player with a more solid return because, don't get me wrong, Mahomes is going to put up numbers. That's a given. But you can get a better return at a more desired skill position, such as RB1 plus. Because teams are going to see his stat line and think that that's the key to them winning the championship. When you can get somebody like a Russell Wilson or somebody we're going to be talking about a little later and put up similar numbers week in, week out, the average is going to be there. You're going to have some outlier games, but the averages are going to be real similar. And you're going to pick up a key position such as a running back, such as, a top tier wide receiver. Hell, you might even be able to get a running back plus a upper tier wide receiver for Mahomes and build your team and get a contributing quarterback and take yourself to the championship while the Mahomes owners on the outside looking in.
For reference of what we're talking about of like points per game being close, he scored, like in this league I'm looking at, he scored 1.1 more points per game than Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow's price tag is nowhere near Patrick Mahomes' price tag, just based on ADP and startups and everything. Go join a startup right now, and you join a Superflex startup. I guarantee Burrow goes second round. Like maybe not now, but I'm just saying, like, the quarterbacks are going. But if it's a single quarterback, I guarantee Burrow goes 3 rounds past Mahomes. So in that sense, yeah. But what I'm going to argue on you here is if you have a Superflex league, he is untradeable. I'm going to completely counter argue this. In a Superflex league, Mahomes is untradeable with an asterisk unless you can get another top 10 running quarterback. Like a guy that runs the ball too would be the benefit here. Like maybe you can go out, maybe you could trade for Mahomes for Lamar Jackson plus. I would do that, but you can't just trade away Mahomes for Jonathan Taylor in a Superflex. Now, in a single quarterback, you want to send Mahomes away for a top 15 running back. I'm not against that. I'd prefer I'm trying to think of who would even do this and everything. Like Alvin Kamara. If somebody wanted to do a Patrick Mahomes for Alvin Kamara in a single quarterback league, I think that's a great deal for the guy getting Kamara. If you can convince somebody to do something like that, you know what I mean? Where you can get a top tier guy.
Yeah. I put him in, you might be able to get with the injury history, you might even be able to get somebody like Dalvin Cook or McCaffrey.
Potentially.
And, and a single quarterback. Now, I don't look at things from a super flex. These picks are based single quarterback because super flex, Mahomes is untouchable.
Yeah.
I think him, Josh Allen, Burrow, and that's pretty much the tier 1 untouchables for me in a super flex. Mm-hmm. That if you get them, they're somebody's going to have to pry them out of your cold dead hands or way overpay. So I base all my picks on a single quarterback because, like I said, super flex is so touted to have that 2 quarterbacks. And having one of the top tier quarterbacks to plug in every week, it is a no-brainer. And
I do like what you're saying. So essentially, to summarize, bring it all full circle for everybody, is that if you can, quote unquote, downgrade your quarterback, because really not downgrading because it's just like 1 or 2 points per game. Like even somebody like Mahomes to Cousins is like 3 points per game. That you can fill that somewhere else. But if you can slightly downgrade your quarterback play to vastly improve another skill position, you should do it. Absolutely. Now let's go ahead and shift focus to the Raiders. And let's kind of keep the little spicy take going. Las Vegas Raiders here. And we're going to stay with trade. My trade. And I say that you need to trade away. This is maybe controversial because I think a lot of people think you need to buy him, but I say get rid of Darren Waller. Now, this is hard for me to say because it's more of like a hot take and everything, but he's going to be turning 30. The problem that I have here is that he was hurt this year, and I didn't think his injury was that significant where he could not play. And it wasn't like the Raiders were resting him for the playoffs because they didn't even know they were in the playoffs till the final week.
Yeah.
But missing 6 games is an issue for me. On top of that, though, his catch percentage was like 60%. He almost had 40 attempts that he didn't even, it was like 38 attempts. His touchdowns went down, and we could say his touchdowns went down because he missed 40% of a season, but his touchdowns went down significantly from the year before. And I think the season that we saw him have past, I think like this is, we want to think it's going to be a trend because we see Kels do the same thing, but we saw Ertz hit a plateau. Like we saw this with Ertz, and he hit a point where it just was no longer there. And for me, I would like to, as he's turning 30 this year, if I could trade Waller for like Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, plus, I'm going to do that. Instead of this, it's just the opposite of Kels, because Kels has proven time and time again for a longer stand period. For Waller and everything, for me, we don't know the quarterback situation. We know Hunter Renfro is now the favorite target there. They're probably going to bring in another receiver since they lost Ruggs, and that might take up some. For me, I just want to trade him away where I can still get lots of value for him.
Yeah, and what's funny about this is because it's the exact polar opposite of what you gave on Travis Kelce. But see, I agree. Waller had very high hopes from the fantasy football community coming into this season, and I think the emergence of Renfro really hits his value. I mean, because they see that they've got a possession receiver, which Waller was a really good underneath guy. Renfro is taking those targets away, so that's going to cut into the value and the upside of Waller. I personally like Waller.
I do too.
I have him.
I like him a lot too.
And I just dealt him. I had one share of him. I just dealt him in the offseason. And when I tell you what I got for him, you're going to – I don't know how you'll feel. I got Hawkinson and 2-1.
See, that is insane value. I think that is fantastic because I have going into this next year Hawkinson ahead of Waller.
See, I got Hawkinson. It's on a team that it's a top 5 team. I'm in the rebuild. Waller was pretty much one of my only assets. So I've got I'm in that stage. So I got the 2-1 and Hawkinson. I was pleased with it when the owner sent it to me with a message being like, "What do you think of this?" And I didn't even read the. I hit accept before I even read the message that he attached to it. I read the message after I accepted it, and he sent me a message. He's like, "That was quick." I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I feel bad." I said, "Please don't call the cops on me." I said, "For taking advantage of you like that." And he said, "I don't think it was. I think I won the deal." And I was like, "I'm glad that you feel that way, sir," because I think Hawkinson's going to take that next step. He showed brilliance here, and we've seen this with, like you said, we've seen this with Ertz. We've seen this with. I'm trying to think of another tight end that we've seen a lot of things like Goddard this year. I mean, Goddard took a step back. I mean, he's got potential, but once they got rid of Ertz, everybody thought Goddard was going to step up. So I think you got a lot of people out there that you could fill in the tight end position and deal Waller to get value for him.
Now, the argument here, so to argue against myself real quick to make sure that I'm not being biased or anything or whatever, Darren Waller did average, like, I just did the math. It's like 8.3 targets per game. He's still going to be targeted high. My thing is I want to cap on the value of tight ends are hard to come by. And I think that unlike Kels, I think you can still get really good value for Waller because he is younger. It's only like 3 years younger, but that's 3 more years of fantasy production that you can sweeten to somebody when you're talking. Now, enough of my guy. Let's move on to your keep.
this one hurts me because it's a player that I'm not very high on.
Ooh, but I am.
But I wasn't very high on him going into the season. If you go back, check some of our TikToks. This is one of my sell now players that I mentioned. But we talked and I looked at some stats here, and I think right now is the time to hold on to Josh Jacobs because
he was an RB1 this year.
They brought Kenyon Drake in to basically be the receiving, but everybody thought that he was going to take a lot of downs, a lot of key possessions away from Jacobs, but Jacobs still was churning out yards. He was a subtle RB1. A lot of people written him off. He wasn't making these flashy stats, but he was making a lot of contributions on a lot of teams, and he wasn't flashy about it. And that's the kind of players I like to have. So yeah, I mean, if you have Jacobs on your team, hold on to him, ride him into the ground, or at least till he has like a monster back-to-back games, and then start floating to see what you can get in return.
Yeah, and he'll be turning 24 here next month. And normally going into your fourth year, we talked about it with Williams, and I said that's when you should try and trade away a guy. I don't think Josh Jacobs' performance is going to lead to him being like a top 5 or even maybe like the number 8, 9, or 10 paid running back. I don't know if the Raiders are going to do that with him. So I don't think I'm worried about that whole second contract thing. I feel like first of all, I don't even think that shit's even real, but that's just like what we're like programmed to talk about as like fantasy and dynasty content guys. Like we're just supposed to believe these myths and everything. But he had over 1,200 yards total. He had the most targets he's ever had. He had like 19 more targets than he did the previous year in the same amount of games. And he, with those extra 19 targets, produced 21 more receptions than he had in the previous year. And Kenyon Drake was nothing. He didn't exist. And with the fact that Jacobs was able to pick up more targets and more receptions and be reliable in the passing game, you got to keep a guy like that, especially when he's only going to be 24. That's so young to get rid of a guy. I think he's an easy keep. And I agree with this. And he finished as running back 12 this year, an RB1. Now let's move on to my buy. Now, this is where we kind of like flip-flopped with Darren Waller, and we're going to talk about Hunter Renfro right now. Now, Hunter Renfro is coming off his best season ever. Probably his best season he'll ever have. I don't know. He finishes the wide receiver 9 this past year and completely benefited from Derek Carr playing lights out, from Darren Waller being hurt, from the Raiders being down in a lot of games. He won't be 27 until like the end of the year. But he ended up producing 128 targets, got 103 receptions on it, over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. So a guy that works in the slot, that works underneath, but can still score touchdowns. It's almost like he's, I fucking hate this comp and saying these things, but it's almost like he's Julian Edelman. But I hate saying that because like we shouldn't just like limit like, oh, undersized white guy that catches the ball is exactly like undersized white guy that catches the ball. He's a highly efficient guy that produces and catches a lot of his targets.
Yeah. See, I don't like the Edelman comparison. I go with the Welker comparison a little bit.
That's the same thing. It's the same thing, though. No, yes, undersized white guy that catches the ball a lot. That's the comparison.
No, because Edelman didn't have the breakaway speed. Welker had.
No, this is true.
And also Edelman was he wasn't a yak person. Renfro is, as was Welker. And you could sprinkle these guys in on special teams. That's where Welker got his claim to fame in Miami, which a lot of people forget that he even played in Miami. He made his name on special teams with his speed, and and Brady got a hold of him and made him into a superstar.
Yeah.
This
Back
is
to
the
Renfro.
same thing. Yeah, and this is the thing with Renfro. It's because nobody gives Carr the credit he deserves.
Yeah.
Carr is a sneaky quarterback that puts up numbers, and he's got a repertoire with Renfro that is going to just elevate his game. There's that trust. If a quarterback trusts somebody, you see it across the league. Quarterbacks have their favorite target, and Renfro's stepped up to be Carr's, and I think that should factor into this decision.
Yeah, and here's the thing: when I say that you should buy Renfro, now will he be more expensive than he's ever been? Yeah, probably, obviously. But the thing is that I think this is when I say, okay, I think that he is going to be a career wide receiver 1 to 2 range. I think wide receiver 9 that he finished this year is probably his peak that he'll ever finish. And I think that's okay. That's fantastic. But I think that's where his range will be. That's a ceiling. And I think his floor in an offense like this with a quarterback like this is wide receiver 18. That's still a low end wide receiver 2, mid wide receiver 2. With that in mind, you can go get a guy right now that is going to seem expensive in a rookie draft that people are downplaying, and that, whatever, rookie hype's going to come up and everything. But let's say they're right. You send away 1.9 for Hunter Renfro. You might not feel good about it right away because everybody else is selling, but he's going to produce for you for the next 3-4 years as a wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1 range. And I honestly think it does not matter who his quarterback is. It does not matter. I think he will still produce. We saw it in college. We've seen it here. And I think he's just going to continue to be a reliable source for any quarterback for the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. And the comparison, and if you want to hear somebody us talk about another comparison, and let's go back and listen to our NFC West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. I just think a guy that has high volumes, he caught 80% of his targets this year. He's also producing touchdowns. He's healthy. He's a guy that's going to fight for yards. I go with him. Now I
wonder what his yak was.
I don't even know. Well, you look that up. I'm going to transition us into our final team in the AFC West. And we're going to talk about the LA Chargers, or Los Angeles Chargers, LOS, because that's alphabetical. Fantasy football, tell me LA Chargers, anyways. So I'm going to talk about my keep. Well, you're looking up those things. My keep is Justin Herbert. This is going to be the shortest, easiest segment outside of Javonte Williams. He finished this year as the quarterback 2. He was drafted as like the quarterback 8. He's the real deal. He's the new Tom Brady, I believe, or Peyton Manning, either comparison you want to use, of the AFC. I think he's going to be that top tier guy that is going to be in that. I saw a comparison video, and it's not saying the play styles are the same, but they were like the 2000s to the 2010s. They had Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, and Rivers running the AFC, and now we have Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, and Burrow. And they discredited Lamar Jackson, but that's okay. But I agree with that situation where he is going to be a long stay quarterback 1 forever. And I don't think that you could trade him away and get anything that you'd be happy with. I don't think that you could try and buy him anywhere and get him for something that you'd be happy with.
No.
So let's keep him. Let's just keep him. And if you don't have him, sucks. Move on. Find somebody else. Sorry. Don't overpay for him. But yeah, that's my keep. Anyways, did you find that yak real quick for Hunter Renfro?
Yeah. On this season, it was 4.3, which I mean is solid. His overall is 5.5.
I mean, that's almost like guaranteeing a first down every time he gets the ball, because you'd assume that catching it, even if he catches a quick slant or an out route, like a 4 or 5 yard pass, he's going to gain an extra 4 or 5 yards potentially. But let's go ahead. I don't want you to talk about Herbert, because I think that's boring. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about who you want to buy.
Well, all aboard the hype train that me and you are the two conductors of, and I'm buying Mike Williams anywhere, everywhere I can. Is he an unrestricted free agent this year or just a free agent? I can't remember.
He was a first round pick. They used his 5th year option. I think when you use your 5th year option, I think you're unrestricted. I don't really know how that stuff works, but
so going in, he's going to be a free agent. If he stays with the Chargers, he stays with one of the top young quarterbacks in the league. If he goes somewhere, there's unlimited possibilities.
He becomes number 1 almost anywhere he goes, I think.
So statistically speaking, he's a solid receiver. He's boom or bust on most weeks. He does have that roller coaster season. Some weeks he's going to put up ungodly numbers. Some weeks he might disappear and put up very subpar, but his average is going to be there. So with him going to a possibly new team, he's going to step up to be that wide receiver one, and this is the time to buy him and reap the benefits wherever he goes.
Yeah, and like I truly, I mean, here's the thing: we don't want to say it, but let's just say the money's rich and it lures him away. Let's say he goes to Detroit and he's the number one there. I think that would be fantastic for him, and that would continue. I know a lot of people wouldn't like that because they don't like Jared Goff or the Lions are very good. Well, yeah, but you have to, when you get better players, you become a better team. When you have better weapons, like more than just Amon-Ra St. Brown, you can play better. Like Goff looked pretty good when he had Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. So why wouldn't you look good if you had Mike Williams in there? Let's say he goes to the Philadelphia Eagles and takes over the number one spot there. I know people love Smith, but Mike Williams would be the number one there. I also think like if he went to like the Baltimore Ravens would be a good spot for him. Let's say he goes to Indianapolis Colts, another good option. Let's say he decides that he doesn't care about winning games and he wants to go to the Houston Texans. I mean, Houston Texans are a really good spot for him too on a team that's probably going to be losing a lot. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to get a lot of money. I like to think there's so many options out there for wherever he could go. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that ends up going to like Green Bay if Rodgers stays as a number two. That's pipe dream shit. It's not going to happen. But yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities out there where he can be a number one, and this might be the cheapest you can buy him.
Yeah, I look for him. I'm going to play the game, and I want to make my prediction where he ends up. If he leaves the Chargers, I'm going to say he ends up in the NFC South as a New Orleans Saint, taking over the wide receiver one that Michael Thomas will void.
Yeah. And I mean, he had a fantastic season, and I think, 100% buy this guy if you can. He might be a little pricey, but remember, the uncertainty of where he goes is your selling point on trying to buy guys. So yeah, that's where we're at. Now let's move to a guy that you want to trade. And I'm puzzled by this. I'm confused. He's 26. He'll be 27 pretty soon. He only missed one game this year. He finishes the running back too. And on standard leagues or like redraft leagues, he was drafted at like the tail end of the first, early second. Talk about Austin Eckler.
I'm trading Eckler. This is one of the strike while the iron's hot. I think he highly outperformed his ADP this year, and he is going to be sought after by some of the top tier teams or some of those middle of the road teams looking to become a top tier team. So this is where you want to strike when a player's got value. This is a good window for him, I think. In a couple of leagues, I own him, and a couple of leagues, I've traded him away.
I agree, because if what we think is true that Mike Williams is going to leave, that's going to entice somebody to think, well, if there's less targets there, he's going to catch more balls. And it's like, maybe he will, but probably not. He's probably still going to have about 80 plus targets, 90 targets. He's still going to be an RB1 next year. But I agree. This is, cash in while it's hot and reap the benefits. And if you can snag a first this year anywhere and a random first next year for this guy, I say do it. Especially if you're a team that's middle of the pack. If you're a middle of the pack team, don't be middle of the pack anymore. Get rid of elite guys for high upside guys.
Yeah, and this is me and you have talked about always churning teams. You want to be churning. Once you let a team become stagnant, that's when you're just going to start donating money. If you're active in your leagues, you're churning these players. You're trying to get players on their on like in laws or right before they hit their upswing, and trading players after they hit that high, and you're expecting to plateau or drop down. This is one of the best things that I can say is Eckler is, don't get me wrong, he's an extremely great talent.
Yes.
He's going to produce, but you got to look at the bigger picture. Don't look at one season. look 2 to 3 seasons down the road. And sometimes you got to make those big moves to be a championship team rather than, well, I have Eckler. He's doing good for me. I'm content. When you become content, you start donating money to your league mates.
No, it's true. And you shouldn't, like, you should constantly be turning. You'd always be turning. And it's like, I'm not trying to use this as an example to like brag or anything. But
yes, you are.
No, but I'm really not. I'm trying to, because like, here's my thing. I don't really give a shit if I'm like right on my predictions or anything. When I'm talking about this, like, I would love for everything I say here to come true and to be right. But ultimately, what I want is I want other people to see what I have done and show that it can have success. And if that can help somebody else, then I'm doing my job. So let's go to Scranton Stranglers. Let's go to trades. Just hear me out. Let's go to 300 days, because why not? So this past season, I completed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I completed 8 trades while I was already a top 3 scoring team. I turned my roster 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I don't think you traded with me once, but that's the other point.
Hold on. No, I didn't. We'll work on that. We'll trade this next year. Don't worry, we're talking about it. But my point is that I felt good enough that I was going to be a top 3 to 4 team, and I was going to contend, and I wasn't satisfied. So don't be satisfied. If Austin Eckler is a guy that you can potentially move to gain A, B, C, do it. If somebody says, I'll give you the 1-2 Michael Carter and fucking, I don't even know, some receiver, do it. Why not?
Let's throw Tony in there.
Okay, the trade I did. Yeah. Why not do it? If somebody said they'll give you, hey, I'll give you Darren Waller and the 1-4, I don't know why they would. I'm just throwing out names. Do it. Yeah. If you can go out and get a guy that doesn't look as shiny at the running back position, but can still produce for you, then go ahead and do it. And especially younger guys, like guys like Josh Jacobs, I think is like the perfect like tier of guys to kind of trade Eckler for Jacobs in a first. If you could do that trade, I think that's a good trade.
Yeah, I mean, you might even be able to snake a trade such get somebody like Williams. You could probably get like a Williams Carter for Eckler deal out there. So somebody might be crazy enough to do that and you're gaining 2 young running backs that are coming into their own. Yeah, you're selling away a key asset, but look at the bigger picture. In 3 years, I see those 2 players equaling double what you're going to see the value of Eckler in 2 to 3 years. So that's what you got to look at. You got to look at the bigger picture and not be so concentrated and have tunnel vision.
And with all that being said, that is it for our show today. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us or watching us here on YouTube. Now, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, like the video, leave a comment down below on one player from any of these teams that you are looking to trade, keep, or buy. On top of that, we want to say thank you to the W2M network that we are now partners with. You can check out all of our content and stuff over there as well. If you want to see more from us, you can view us on Facebook. You can view us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, where we have different stuff that is not actually here on the podcast as well, plus the stuff that's on the podcast. Now, let's say you like my voice, you like my takes, or you like Jason's voice, you like his takes. You can check us out talking about other topics. Jason, where can they listen to you discuss things?
Actually, just last night, me, my wife, and one of our good friends joined in the Rattledge Broadcasting Network, and we did a Scream 2022 roundtable that I hosted. I'm getting ready to be really busy coming up. Mm-hmm. I've got a show over there with the Patriarch of the Rattledge Broadcasting Network where we're reviewing a really interesting show called Dummy. I highly recommend never to watch it around your kids because it's Anna Kendrick and a compromising show. And then in February, it's 2 white guys talking about Black History Month over there when me and Mark tackle a variety of different movies in our triple feature segment. So yeah, definitely check out the W2M network. Great things are coming. And Tyler, where else can they find you?
Well, we're on kind of a break right now, but we have some YouTube videos going up right now of top 10s and stuff, and podcasts will be out soon again, and Twitter as well, and TikTok, I mean. But if you like MTV's The Challenge, the reality show based on the real world and road rules, where strangers compete for cash and pride, and it's, you know, entertaining show that I talk about there. The podcast is called Love War Challenges, hosted by MTV Malik himself and one of our great co-hosts, Becky, as well. You can check us out there. And with all that being said, all that big long outro, thank you guys. And we'll see you guys next week when we break down another random division.